Anthony, welcome. Great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm trying to upgrade my room rater status, Andy, so I hope you don't mind the setting that we're in. I've been getting dished on room rater, so I'm hoping this will give me a little lift. But the stock market is a very narrow market. It's basically 15 stocks. Today, obviously, the tech stocks were slightly weaker. There was a small rotation, but these rotations, Andy, they never last. And so what's powering the market right now, 15 stocks, some are trading in infinite PE, some are trading at 150 times earnings. And, I'm long enough in the tooth now, 32 years in the industry, to know that this ends in tears. No one's going to be able to predict when it ends. But when a pin goes into this stuff, there'll be 50, 60% declines. You can't have 150 times earnings and not see some kind of diminution in value as things multiple contract.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think that's going to happen, though, Anthony? I mean, is it because the economy's not in great shape or COVID's worse than people think? Why do you suspect the market's going to go down from here?
No, I'm not saying it's going to go down. It's going to rotate. Take a look at where the S&P was in January and the complexity of the S&P. Value has shifted into the FANG stocks plus Microsoft. The S&P now is up for the year, but value has come out of 485 stocks in the S&P and gravitated to 15. And so what I predict will happen is as the economy starts to improve and people feel more comfortable in earnings at Carnival and earnings at other companies in the Dow Jones Industrials and in the S&P 500, it'll rotate. And if you're at 150 multiple, even if you have really good fundamentals, you can't expect those names to stay there. And I'll bring you back to March of 2000 when the Nasdaq was at 5,000 and everybody was red hot for internet stocks. Yahoo was a hot ticket back then, as you will recall. And yet by March of 2000, a pin went into the NASDAQ and we saw a 50% loss in value. Microsoft has traded down, in my memory, at least 3 times since its IPO. Somebody told me today it was 6 times. I have to do the research on it. But my point is, you can't have stocks rally to this extent at those valuations without expecting some loss. So no, I like the overall market. There's a water wall of liquidity in the market, and the economy will improve once we get to a vaccine. But I'm just worried about that sliver of stocks that's propelling the market right now.
Yeah, what about the hedge fund business, Anthony? You know a little bit about that. You're in it. They had a great month in April, but questions about it going forward here, hurting about outflows and the like.
Yeah, well, listen, we had a difficult March, as you know. I talked about it on Yahoo. We've had a 14-week period of time where we've had about a 9% recovery. Our best month since the COVID-19 crisis was June, where we were up 3.7%. So the hedge fund industry is having a small renaissance right now because of the rotation that's going on in the overall market. And if you look at what happened in March, companies like Bridgewater, companies like SkyBridge had very difficult months. Canyon had a difficult month. So a result of which you're now seeing a residual reversal. And so, yes, money is flowing out of the hedge funds. The passive active debate has been won by the passive investment community. It's 12 years of them winning that debate. And so we could then write an obituary of the hedge funds. But you and I both know, being on Wall Street for as long as we are on Wall Street, that we both think that we're in the investment business, but a lot of times we're in the fashion industry where things come in and out of favor. And if you see some type of normalization in the market, you will see a return to active investing versus passive. So I'm always cautioning people, leave yourself in a balanced portfolio, have at least 5 to 7% exposure to hedge funds, companies like SkyBridge, Point72, Bridgewater, et cetera.
Yeah. I want to jump into some politics here quickly. We saw that former Ohio Governor John Kasich said he's going to speak at the Democratic convention maybe some Republicans jumping ship here. What does this mean as we head towards November, Anthony?
Well, I think many Republicans feel this is now battle for the democracy. So this is the biggest schism in the Republican Party since the Jerry Ford, Ronald Reagan schism in 1976. And so a good portion of Republicans, myself included, have broken away from the president and would choose Joe Biden over President Trump. Many Republicans feel that Joe Biden is actually more of a Republican than President Trump if you really study his record and you study Trumpism. And so I think it's going to be a very difficult election for the president. I referenced that to you in January before the COVID-19 crisis brewed up. We were in Davos, Switzerland together. You asked me my opinion. I thought then that the president was going to lose the election. That was not the consensus by those global elites that you and I were trafficking in at that time. But it does seem like now that that's a likely outcome. And I think you've got a number of things going on right now in 2020, very different from 2016. And that's basically the schism in the party. And John Kasich, Governor Kasich, represents that. And I'm very excited that he's going to be speaking at the DNC.
Who should Joe Biden pick as his running mate, Anthony? Kamala Harris, Susan Rice, Val Demings. There's a lot of people out there. And would
Well,
you?
I like the other. I like the other Rice. I like Condoleezza Rice actually.
All right. Who do you think he's going to pick? And would you serve
So
in the administration?
So would I serve in the administration? Well, only if he promised me that I would serve for 12 days and not 11. I'd have to get sort of a job guarantee, you know, the way you guys get your long-term media contract. So I would serve, but I got to at least serve for 12 days, not 11. But in this following order is what I think is going to happen. It's Kamala Harris, possibly Susan Rice, and then I think Val Demings would be third. Not that she's not incredibly talented and very competent, but I just think that she is not as well vetted on the national stage as the other two represent. So, and her time will come, in my opinion. I think she's an incredibly talented person.
Anthony, you mentioned to me earlier that this is the 3rd-year anniversary of you having the one and only press conference as White House communications
Yes.
director today.
Yes,
And
yes, I lasted one Scaramucci, which is now 11 days, sort of the Kanye West of press secretaries or communications directors. But look, I'm out on the beach today. This is the take your dad to play day as opposed to taking a kid to work. So I've been doing my work from here. I hope you guys don't mind. But it's a beautiful setting out here in Southampton. And here, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn the camera.
yeah, well, life is a beach for you. I want to ask you about a tweet that you put out there today. It had to do with the president being concerned about getting COVID and getting tested a lot. And you told a story about a part of your anatomy.
Yeah, well, I was experiencing a dry throat on Air Force One, and the president's a very famous germaphobe, and so he's pressing buttons in the cabin there. Ronnie shows up, and the president said, "Hey, something's wrong with Anthony. Go fix him." Ronnie looked in my mouth and insisted on giving me a penicillin shot in my buttocks. So, when you think about humanity, when you think about your mortality, there I was on Air Force One with my trousers down, taking a penicillin shot. And so I was just, riffing a little bit this morning. I thought that was funny. People say that the president's being tested 2 or 3 times. I absolutely believe that. And listen, my issues with the president are not personal. I always got along with him in those settings. He's a garrulous guy. He can be very charming, but man, is he a germaphobe. Do not lick your fingers and go to touch something on his desk, like to turn pages. He flips out about stuff like that. Ask Smith Mulvaney.
Anthony, I think we're going to have to leave it at that, in part because I don't think we can go anywhere from here.